let's install this bad boy. So there's no better way to learn than to just get in and get our hands dirty. So let's do exactly that. I have a Windows 2008 R2 server named Sharepoint 2010B. It is basically blank. So we're going to go through this process from start to finish, starting with downloading the installation media. Using a browser other than Internet Explorer, maybe Chrome. We're just going to go to the Metalogics.com website. I'm going to hover over support, get to product downloads and resources. Under Diagnostic Manager, we're going to go to downloads. I'm going to download the latest version, 4.2.2861. Looks like he's downloading down here. Quite slowly. I must admit, it seems like I've got probably some network inconsistencies in my VMs. Sorry for the wait. But in addition, we can also download release notes, documentation, etc. from the same location. I know often you probably go to the main portal page and type in all your information, but a fun little back-end secret trapdoor, so to speak, to the download media itself is here. And, you know, you can download whatever you want. I mean, without a license, it doesn't really matter. So you can always get to it there. Looks like we're a little bit over halfway done. While we're waiting for this, I wonder if there's any questions at this point. Maybe not. The upside is that this is usually the longest wait in terms of the DM installation. DM installations are pretty straightforward, so we're going to see some pretty quick turnaround once this guy gets downloaded. All right. The wait is over. All right. So I'm just going to right-click this guy and extract it here. Boom. Now we've got a directory and some fun stuff to do stuff with. So Diagnostic Manager 4.2.2861.exe. I'm going to right-click that, run it as an administrator. And then again, note, we've got the advanced installation guide and all these other reference and user guides available to us now as well. Go ahead and close out my browser. And here we go. This should all look pretty standard and the usual, so to speak, for an installer. We're going to accept our license agreement. I'm going to provide the path. I'm going to be okay with that path. Again, notice that we're going to program files x86 by default because we are a 32-bit tool. I'm going to do a complete install, but just to show you, a custom install gives us the opportunity to pick and choose what specific components we're going to be installing in the event that we want to do a distributed installation. I'm just going to install everything to one single application server to rule them all. But note that you can, if you want, opt not to install specific components if need be to distribute the installation out. But again, for me, I'm going to do a complete install, easy peasy. I'm going to define my SQL Server instance, which I'm going to go and pull it up over here. I have a server called SQL that hosts a 2008 R2 instance of SQL Server. I'm going to define that as my, and I'm going to call my repository. By default, it's called Metalogics_DM repository, but I'm just going to append 2010B to the end because you know, I'm hosting quite a few different repositories on this instance. I just want to be able to identify them at a glance, right? So click Next. It does a quick validation to make sure I can actually access that SQL Server, etc. and then moves on, and then we define the security context from which our collection service will run. I have a quote-unquote God account, so to speak, that has access across the board to everything I want to use, and it is this guy. That's me. So this account is a local administrator on this box, 2010B. It's a local administrator on SQL with sysadmin privileges to the SQL instance. It's also a local administrator on the Sharepoint farm servers that I intend to monitor. We'll get to those in a second. I have a total, a complete other Sharepoint farm that I'm going to be monitoring. So I'm going to go ahead and click Next. I'm going to click Install at beginning installation. We're going to see a little bit of paint dry, blue this time instead of green. Fred quickly asks, is there anything to watch out for when updating, upgrading an installed copy? And yeah, I'm going to cover that at the end. Once we're all installed, we'll talk about the upgrade process real quick. So I'm going to start up our services. All set. Then we're going to launch the Diagnostic Manager console. So at this point, I should note that over on my SQL server, I now have a new database created called Metalogix DM repository underscore 2010B. As you can see, I've got a couple others for different installations. But this is the one I just installed. Has tons of tables in there representing all the data that we're going to be collecting, right? Uh-oh. Did I lose connection somewhere? No. I'm actually going to go steal a license from this other guy real quick because I forgot to provision a license for this installation. So the first thing that comes up whenever the installation completes and I launch the console is it asks me for my license key, right? Right now I'm attempting to steal the license from my other installation just to use it. I think I have enough servers. No bother, really? All right. I'm going to have to go manually steal it, but if you guys have other questions, go ahead and pop them in now. Yeah, what you're witnessing now is just ill preparedness on my part. I forgot to provision a license prior to the meeting, so I'm having to go grab one from my other installation. Sorry about the delay here. But yeah. While we're waiting to do this, though, on the subject of the update upgrade, really, in general, upgrade should just be a matter of running the installation right on top. The only exception to that rule, and it's not really a huge deal, but I always recommend, just because I know, I've seen it and I know, but whenever you install this Metalogix version and are upgrading from the old diagnostic manager from Idera, I always recommend reinstalling from scratch. So uninstalling that Idera version and reinstalling our Metalogix version from scratch, just because there are some folder name changes and directory structure that gets moved around that, in my opinion, is just easier, not necessarily programmatically or functionally, but in terms of just identifying the different components and reacclimating myself to the new naming conventions, to just reinstall from scratch with the Metalogix bits. Beyond that, though, I mean, generally speaking, upgrading Diagnostic Manager is just a matter of running the installer right on top. All right? So I've entered my license, and immediately I get prompted to choose to either begin monitoring a Sharepoint farm or continue without registering a farm. So I'm going to go ahead and begin monitoring a Sharepoint farm because I know I'm going to want to do that, right? So the name of my farm is going to be Sharepoint 2013A. It's one of two 2013 farms I have in this environment. The topology server itself actually is the same server name. Topology server. So what I'm defining here is any server in the farm in question that will give me access to stuff. So behind the scenes, what's about to happen here is I'm about to try to query that server via WMI to his registry. I'm going to try to read the registry on 2013A. In the registry, I'm going to read a key that gives me the connection string to the SQL Server instance hosting the configuration database for this farm. Every server in the farm has a reg key that's replicated across every server in the farm that indicates where the configuration database lives for that farm. I'm going to read that registry key, take that connection string, and then make a second connection via SQL query to that connection string and read that aforementioned objects table from the configuration database to learn the servers in the farm. I hope that makes some sense. So knowing that's what I'm about to do, I'm going to go ahead and define, and that's what farm database account does. So whatever account I specify for this particular scope, whether it's that or whatever the case may be, this account is what's doing this topology discovery process, right? That's what used to query SharePoint databases to farm topology and SQL Server information. That's what that account's used for. Server performance, whatever account I specify here, this guy is doing the remote WMI calls to the target servers that we discover in the first step to get actual metric data back, right? So support test / WMI account, right? Password. So he's the guy pulling the metric data back via WMI from each of the servers that we discover using the topology account. Page performance is just basically load times. This is the easiest of them all, just HTTP read access and the account password. So in this circumstance, I'm telling the collection service, use this account to learn the topology and then subsequently to gather SQL data. Use this account to gather the main metric data we're going to see most of in the tool. And then use this account to grab page load times, right? In my circumstance, my collection service account, Roy M, actually will satisfy all of these scopes. So I will opt not to provide alternative credentials. If you don't provide alternative credentials, the default behavior is to leverage the collection service account, right? Go ahead and click Test Farm Accounts. I've got a couple questions I want to hit real quick. Brenna asks, how do you install a new collection service? We'll get to that at the end. And then she also asks, for offline activation, do you have to grab a new hash whenever installing additional management consoles? The answer is no. Management consoles, like workstation management consoles, when you install a console by itself, the first thing that you're asked upon installation is, where does the collection service live? You give the collection service host machine name to the tool, and then it comes up, connects to that collection service, and the collection service keeps track of what's been licensed, right? The license information lives in a repository. Collection service knows that information. So really, consoles, the remote desktop workstation consoles are essentially just windows into an existing installation, but it's the installation that tracks that license data, right? And we'll show that in a minute when I go to my other machine and install a console. So as you can see here, we've done some checks here. Now, you might be wondering, if you're clever, why there's 4 check marks when there's only 3 server account scopes, right? And this is because, remember I was telling you that discovery process actually is 2 separate concepts. Remember, the first thing we do using this farm database account, read the registry on SharePoint 2013A. That was successful. We found the connection string to the config database. The second thing, using that same account, is connect to that configuration database and learn the servers in the farm. And that's what this second check mark is, right? So these top two options are both relevant to this farm database account. Then we were able to confirm that Roy M. can get remote WMI connections to the servers. And then we were able to check that Roy Martinez can check page availability with that account. So we are in good shape. If any of those checks failed, obviously there'd be a red X with a little bit of information as to why we couldn't. For instance, server registry access might say something like access denied to the remote server, et cetera, and we'll know where to troubleshoot from that point. So we click OK, and we should see some data pretty much right off the bat. I'm just going to give it some time to think and figure out what goes where. I think, unless I didn't click OK. Ah, my mistake, I didn't click OK. All right, congratulations. I have successfully registered a farm. Over the next few minutes, Diagnostic Manager will collect initial performance and configuration data about the farm and its servers and pages. With this first data collection is complete, we can review alerts raised, et cetera, et cetera. I don't need to be shown that again. So I'll click OK. Voila. We've got some stuff immediately. So now right off the bat, we can see a little bit of red and a little bit of green. Nothing too fancy yet. So this is all based on default static alert thresholds. In our next session, we're going to get real deep into alert threshold setting and stuff. For this, I want to focus on this installation, so I'm not going to go too deep into any of this at this point. So we've installed. We're in shape. We've got some initial steps to take. Great. I am running low on time, so I want to quickly get the component analysis solution installed out there. So I'm going to go to the farm that I've began monitoring, right? Content summary is unavailable because a content summary collection has not completed yet, in case you guys are seeing that and wondering. So let me go over to 2013A real quick, open Central Admin, and see if my component analysis solution is already deployed. If it is, I apologize in advance because it means I forgot to uninstall it so we can deploy it. But we'll see in just a moment. So I'm going to go to System Settings. Again, this is the target farm that I'm monitoring with the DM tool. Note that my DM tool is on a completely different environment, 2010B. So I need to go to the Central Admin to manage farm solutions for the target farm that I'm monitoring. And what I'm doing right now is just determining, have I installed the Diagnostic Manager component analysis solution? And the answer is no, I do not. So what I want to do right now is deploy that. The dashboard we'll talk about in the next session. So what I'll do here is I've got on this machine the component analysis installation files, right? These are packaged with the installer in that exact path. So under normal circumstances, I would have gone to that path here. Component analysis, as you can see. I would grab my files for the version of SharePoint I'm running, in my case 2013, exe and config, And you'll also need these files up here. So really the best way to do it, just grab this entire folder, copy it, move it to the target farm, and then run from there. Because again, we're running this directly on a WFE in the farm to get this component analysis solution installed. So I'm going to give this a shot. And honestly, I don't know what to expect from my farm, so we'll see if this works. If it doesn't work, we'll go through it by manual means. So it's going to check and see some stuff. All right. Here it sees if we're running a version of Sharepoint that this tool supports. Here it's literally checking to make sure the account I'm currently running this as exists in the farm admin group. Not in a group. We won't check and dig into groups within the farm admin group. We want to see, is this account directly in the farm admin group? That's actually some.
Hey, Roy.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, we can't hear you anymore. Sorry. Can you keep talking?
Oh, sure. I'll come start. I'm sorry. I think I actually may have accidentally been on mute. So if you didn't hear me, so
no
as you saw, the CodeFlex installer ran into an issue. I think it has to do with the timer service in my environment, so probably not something you'll see on your side. But as you can see, it did actually get the WSP into the solution store. So at this point, I'm totally okay to just jump in here and deploy by normal means, right? To be perfectly frank, this is somewhat common. Solution deployments are always tricky in point farms. These are the steps, though. I'm just going to run this guy, deploy him manually. Again, you can always deploy the solution by the means that you normally take, whether that be PowerShell or STS AVM or whatever the case may be. Yeah, as you can see, my farm is just hosed. I'm terribly sorry about this. This is just about my timer service. Probably because I've installed it so many times and uninstalled it and the like. But hopefully that, with the exception of my issues, and again, I can't apologize enough, hopefully that makes some sense as to how you go about installing that farm solution. It's just a standard farm solution deployment. Let me just see what I've got. I don't want to spend too much time trying to troubleshoot, but yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to have to skip that. But by next session, I'll have this resolved and we can actually look at the component analysis solution again. My apologies for that. But hopefully the process and the steps makes sense. So essentially, we're just taking that installer over to the WFE, running it as an admin there. Alternatively, kicking it off as a normal solution deployment would be done. All right. That said, one last thing I want to do is just demonstrate the management console installation by itself. I think I have a server here that doesn't have it installed yet. Logics. Oh, he's already there. Now, let's uninstall him, shall we? Actually, I don't think he's installed here. Let's just do it here. Great. All right. So I'm going to go grab my installation media. So this will be the steps for installing a remote console on a workstation, right? So once again, we're going to go to our this is why I hate you, IE. So go to MetaLogics. And then we download our installation media there. Alternatively, you could just go to the server where you first installed and just pull it over from there, which is what I'm going to do. There we go. So we'll run this guy. Great. So we'll accept again, go through. We're going to choose a custom this time. And I'm going to exclude the features I don't want, which is everything other than the console, right? Now install. It should install just that console, which should be pretty quick. And then upon first launch, since there's no backend currently associated with it, we should get prompted to provide the location of our collection service. As you can see, he's attempting right now to connect to the collection service on himself. He doesn't find it, so he says, hey man, where's my collection service? Well, we know that the collection service is at Sharepoint 2013B, which I'll type in if my mouse is in the right place. Oh, I'm sorry, it's 2010B. We click OK. He reaches out. And there we go. So now we can see congruent information to what we see over here on 2010B. We can see the same farm that's been connected to and monitoring from. Our license is in place already. We don't have to worry about anything like that. So this is a proper remote workstation hosting just the console, looking at the back-end installation on 2010B.